Welcome. I'm your host, Chris Black, and I'm back to talk about Platonic Solids and Polyhedral dice. If you remember the video I did back, way back when, um, I think it was like 2015 or 2016, I did a video on how to use polyhedral dice, as in using them for intuition. You know? So we're gonna get into it. Um, Platonic solids comes from the idea that it was recorded that this person, right, um, discovered Platonic solids. Therefore, they named it after this guy Plato, which in fact is not really true. Yes, it's true. Yes, Plato had a lot, but here's the thing: there were a bunch of people that were getting getting these, um, you know, these messages. Okay, it wasn't just one person. Okay, it was many people in Africa and all over the world. Okay, so let's just leave it at that. It's Platonic solids, and Plato discovered um, the thought and the view and the feeling of the element. It was the element. It wasn't really the shape. It was the element. And back then, you know, it was really the four elements: earth, air, water, fire. Right? Ether is the dodecahedron. But the thing here is that I believe is that the element of the dodecahedron is what your mind and everything is viewing when you are when you are influencing, or it's influencing your view and your senses of what you're discovering. And that's what that really is, because that works with everything. And they say an intuition, a gut feeling, this, that. That is the dodecahedron. Okay? So, the thing is that, let's just say this. All right, let's start from the tetrahedron. The tetrahedron is fire. The fire, it has four. It goes up to four. So you're dividing four parts of the escalation of what that is and the de-escalation of what that is. Why? Because we're talking about a human body. Okay? And that is known, everybody, especially if you're spiritual. Fire. What's fire? Evoking fire. Um, you know, uh, Calling fire. Something is like, ooh, that's tough stuff right there. Now, in a very um, professional sense, that fire is assertiveness on the job or in school. See? Or, I'm sorry, I should say administrative. Fire, administrative wise, which is any scholastic, any academic, any business, any administrative business, anything, school, job, whatever. Fire is assertiveness. You don't have to be working at an office. You could absolutely labor as fire. See how I tied that together, right? And as a person reading, you're gonna read something, you use that, but you use all of them. Use all of them together. It's reading it across. But I'm talking about each one for now. So the next one, let's also talk about. I just said assertiveness, right? That's a pretty positive. Why? And because and what would that be on the polyhedral dice of the tetrahedron? That die, if it rolled a four, it would not be assertiveness. It would be probably like what you don't like, what nobody wants, the drama. I would say assertiveness is probably like two and maybe three. All right, but I definitely say two, because if you think about it, it's like, because they're four, and you're thinking of an escalation, like let's say Kundalini. You know, people don't realize this. But if you ever seen somebody get into a fight, and if you ever seen, it really happens, but it does. I've seen it where somebody's like, "Whoa!" They go in like a warrior, and they come out like they're done real quick. Bum 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 bum. It's people think that it's always because they're training. Yeah, kind of, but there's something that goes inside, something that's so fiery that when they push through, if ever a person has ever said, well, he beat me, but you know what? I didn't really feel anything, or I didn't really get beat up. But as he was punching me, I was moving, my whole body moved back, and I fell to the ground. I had no control of myself or my strength. This is that in its energy spirit form. And I used to talk about it a long time. He used to get the hell out of here, because we were into martial arts. And the one thing that I was always thought about was, there's something about martial arts besides the physical. I think there's energy behind it that is like a lot more powerful than we think. And they used to get so mad at me and tell me, shut up, stop talking like that. That's crazy. No, it's not. It's absolute. And that's what this is about. I'm so glad that I could spend this time talking about it, because it's true. I saw a thing today in LinkedIn where they said the tetrahedron is the solar plexus. Absolutely not. Absolutely not, because the tetrahedron is the sacral where you bust somebody up. Could it bring peace? Probably, because of being that. Now I could be wrong, but I'm saying, now listen to this, where I'm correcting myself, is that the one on the tetrahedron polyhedral dice, fire, when you're rolling it, when it comes to reading and having intuition, if it lands on a 1, I would say that it is similar. It is a similar attribute to the solar chakra, because the solar chakra is peace. Just because they're both fire doesn't mean it's different. But there is a similar attribute there. But that's what it can tell you. And that's why I think people got it confused and think that when lining up to the chakras, they think the tetrahedron belongs to the solar chakra. That's not true. Why? Because of 3 and 4. It's weird how the dice actually lead to teach you a little more things that you might not understand or know at first when studying. Hey, listen, Platonic Solids is a huge, endless border of information. So don't think just because I'm going to teach you this thing that's it to know. I am still learning Platonic Solids, even though I can use the polyhedral dice to do readings, and I do them very well, because I've studied. It's about the elements and the conjuncting, or sorry, I use that word a lot. The correlation of the elements with everything that aligns with elements, from not just things that are in the mystical realm, like chakras and crystals and this and that, which is very important. But there's other things too. There's the elements like tin, metal. I'm sorry, like tin, brass, iron, calcium, beryllium or beryllium, something like that. And a lot of these chemicals are in our body. The best way to kind of show the few of them is, there's a thing called the Russell-Stover chart, where it shows the human in complete balance, with showing the chemicals of the female and the male. But it's a circular disc, and it has like a chart inside. It's very interesting. You know what I'm saying? And so in there's a lot of chemicals that all together, these chemicals are made. By the way, all the chemicals in our body are made because of the 5. And yes, I can talk about the 5 now, because why? Because all 5 create the human. The one that I was talking about, dodecahedron platonic solid, is a usage or something that's like this engine. And that is what we're feeling and how we know. We come to know the absolute four elements are fire, earth, water, and air. Okay. I believe that, I've been using the die of the dodecahedron to read ether because that's what it says it is. It's aether, or aether. And we all know that we can feel things. We can feel different things. If you ever were sitting in a room and you felt like your shoulder was warm, but then you turn around and you're like, wait a minute. And then you felt like you could almost feel like that thing pulsating. You don't know what it was. It's in the air and it's moving. That could be a type of ether, which is only a word to describe. What a lot of people don't understand is when you think about the things that are outside of the planet, which are stuff like photons, waves, a plasma. What was the other one? All these things have value. And when sometimes they come together, sometimes they come apart. I don't know. There's a few other things too. You guys know what's out there in the cosmos, and these things seep through. But people can't really read those things, and that's why there's ether. And when a person is who they are, that thing connects us to knowing these elements, which are real, by the way. These are physical, real elements. And whatever the reason is in energy, because we're just talking about it now, however it goes, it's weird, right? It's weird. Like a human, right, has fire, air, earth, water, and ether. You see? And that's what that is, So anyway, we talked a lot about fire. All right, now let's go to the octahedron, which is the die or the Platonic solid that has two pyramids with their ends touching each other. With the like if you took a pyramid, the pyramid has four sides. Don't get it confused with the tetrahedron. The tetrahedron has three sides, right? And as far as the bottom. But when you look at there, they look like pyramids, but they're two pyramids with the ends touching each other so that the points are out. And it's very strange. It looks like a crystal when you hold it up. And so this is called the octahedron. This is air. This is about your thinking. This is, it can slightly lead to a certain emotion, but not really. It's really more about the power, because now we're talking about the die, the die, the polyhedral dice. The die that is the octahedron has 8 sides. So that's 8. That's kind of like, it's like just exactly. I said 2 pyramids. It's doubling that. Because the bottom is always counted. If it can be rolled, the bottom is counted. See? So that's why the tetrahedron has 4 and the octahedron has 8. So the octahedron is thinking, and what is in your brain? What is a fascinating thing in your brain? Intuition, right? So you're connecting with that. But sometimes it shows in so many ways, especially the base of it, which is the foundation, which is being, if I say being an intelligent person, it kind of doesn't make sense. Just using your brain, using it. And if you know that you've been on this earth for how long, you know damn well that being healthy, being all around healthy, physically healthy and emotionally healthy, helps you to rest. And if you sleep, You feed your brain. And a lot of people these days are so uh, running rampart for no reason, and it's just because you're feeling, and that's okay. It's not wrong. Nobody's saying you're doing anything wrong. It's just not healthy. And if you're a person who wants to be a smart person, an intelligent person, an intelligible person that communicates intelligibly, you know that you got to take care of yourself. But that's only before the fact that if you're a lazy person, you don't study things. If you don't study and read, right? Listen, forget about what the average reader is and how they do it. Forget about any of them. They've been doing it so long. But it's different levels of things, and I guess maybe it's how society's formed. But maybe, just maybe, you can, if you are not a reader, you want to study, you want to, this is what I'm talking about right now. Everything that I'm saying has everything to do with this Platonic solid octahedron. And why am I saying this? Because this is not just about Platonic solids, because I wouldn't be talking about intuition. Well, the dice is about the dice and using them to do readings. And this is what it is. And we're talking about, it's all thinking. You want a planet? How's Venus? You see? And that's the alignment right there. Everybody wants to say Mercury when they think of fire. But I'll be like, how's Saturn? Saturn's weird. Don't know what it is yet. It's iron. Anyway. And that is the air element, thinking. What are you thinking? What's going on? Also, what's funny? There is something in water that correlates, and I love the way when we talk about these things, like before when I said that rolling a 1 would have the same attributes, a same kind of attribute on the tetrahedron, fire, for reading the energy of the solar chakra. It's like a little bit the same, but that doesn't mean that is that. They're different, And so the brain is the octahedron. The physicality, strength is the tetrahedron, the body. Why would we want to know how it goes in the body? Because that's what we're doing. We're reading a human, All right, so, and that's air. The thinking, the intuition, and the power of being intelligent, being able to refer. You're referring to things because you studied it. What did Einstein say? If you can't explain it, then you don't know it, right? So the next one is the hexahedron, the cube. This is Earth. This is the way your life is going. Your friends, people around you, this, that. It's beautiful. The beautiful thing. I have found that sickness, not feeling well, getting a person. I was reading a person and their Earth was like a 2, and I was like, oh man. I was like, did something happen? Were you not well? And they were like, oh, we were in a accident, or I could have sworn they said a boat accident. It's not funny. I mean, hey, listen, you have a shift on a boat and you think that boat is going down and you're in that boat. I don't care if it's, Gilligan's Island boat or the Queen Mary. Hey, you're gonna, a person, even a normal person, would feel anxiety from that. So, have understanding for people. You know what I'm saying? And that is the hexahedron. That is Earth. There's 6 sides, and the higher the number, the more flowing and balanced a person is. The lower the number, they could be sick. They could have a cold. They could have a flu. They could have something really bad. They could be also depression. A person gets into this thing, they get super depressed, they get lonely, they get sad, they don't want to talk to nobody, they become introverted, but it's really bad though. It's not like Like a normal introvert person is normal. They can normally feel that way. They're not sad. They're just normal like that. But an introvert person can also become very depressed. So, um, I would say also perhaps employment is a high role. Sometimes, and I trying to think how I would explain this, but sometimes a 5 or a 6 could mean possibly that either they already are working at a good job or that something could be in the midst of it. And it's crazy to say this because it might not be specific with the cube, because even though everything's polygonal, these are all polygons. Without the polygons, you know, and that's what the tetrahedron. It seems like the base. That's because it's polygonal. Everything's polygonal. No matter what shape you look at it, either 1, 2, 3, or 1,000 triangles could fit in there. Trust me. All right. So, and that's Earth. Earth is the higher numbers can really be like beautiful things. Like 5 and 6 can also be a new relationship. It could be also a new house, a settlement. It doesn't have to be so extreme, but something is great is happening with the person. Feels good about things, certain things. A 5 and 6 is definitely that person is not having a bad time in their life. I don't care what the rest of the dice say. You got a 6 on a hexahedron, a cube. That person's having a great time in their life. They don't have to be receiving a grand thing that costs $50,000. They can get something like maybe somebody took them out for dinner, and it was the most amazing experience. You see what I'm saying? So these things are reason for this also. And these are what I'm saying. Listen, there's so many things in life. I'm only telling you these things so you can use your mind, think, and figure the rest of the Platonic solids out, and figure out the rest of the correlation with the die, with each die. The dice set. Next is icosahedron, which is the big one. When I was a kid, I loved Dungeons and Dragons, and I was like, oh my god, those dice, they're so cool. First, I think it was the tetrahedron. I thought it was amazing, and then as a dice, I saw the big one, and it rolled, and it's like 20 sides. I was obsessed with that one. It's funny that I'm obsessed with it because it's really like the Merkaba. The icosahedron is water. Water is talents, administration, and emotions. Now, I'm going to tell you something about the flow of the numbers. Something very strange that this energy was like pointing out, and I'm receiving this information, right? So the water has 20 sides, and 1 through 11 could mean that also having not feeling well, depression. I see it's going up, right? Thinking about yourself, thinking about your talents, thinking you want to do it, and then you get to 11, and then you get mad because you got to study, or you got to practice your saxophone, or you got to practice your piano, or you got to practice your clarinet. You got to read, you got to understand, you got to learn how to read the notes on the scale. You got to know their time signatures. You got to know what 4 over 4 is. You got to know what 3 over 3 is. Right? But you're like, yeah. And you look at the world, you're like, oh, I want to be this famous, or you want to, maybe not famous, but you want to be able to play in a band. But you get lazy or whatever. Or you get tired, or you get sad, or you get whatever. Okay. So what I'm talking about has so much to do with all the numbers from 1 to 11. Because what happens is after 11 is where you started to break through. So like 12 to 15 is a transition, and 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20 are you really using your talents and administrations in your life. Remember, this is a reading about a person who's wanting this information. This has nothing to do with you. You have to understand all the elements, all the correlations, everything that coexists with every element. Because where you're going to get your information of what you're going to feel when you feel these feelings and you study, it pops up, it matches. And that's why people love these readings so much. See? So, in this water, I would say if like a few times a person they've rolled 17, an 18, a 20, right? And I was like, you're trying to do something and it's working. You just started a business, or you wrote a book, or you wrote a song. And they're like, oh, I just started a business. That's crazy. How did you know? So what happens. See? And that's water. Water is your emotions, talents, and administrations. What's great about that transitional period in the rolling from 12 to 15 is funny, because what happens to a lot of people that are talented and they work hard at trying to get something, or they're trying to start something, what happens is they can stop and get not necessarily depressed, but kind of like feel overwhelmed and be like, oh, I need a break. So if the person could have definitely at 11, this is weird, right? So this one die is so different. So at 10 and 11, maybe 9, the person is like already like starting to do the talent, and everybody's like, whoa, you're good at that. Or they're like, whoa, you could be good at that. Or you know what I'm trying to say? Like if a person that's has never did something and they just started touching it, all of a sudden they're like almost good. Hello, that means if they practice even a little bit, they'll be great. You know what I'm saying? So that's why water is very important. And remember, the 12, 13, 14, and 15 could be a holding period. So it's not necessarily that if they're at 12 or they're at 13 or at 14 or whatever, that they are not wanting to, or they're giving up or becoming depressed. It could happen. And you could be reading that and try to warn them, but you got to understand, you got to also learn to use the other dice as far as when they're all together. Because right now I'm just talking about the each die and its power and its information. I'm not telling you how to read the whole, like when you do a whole toss. All right, let's just keep going. I'm almost finished. I'm going to start talking about the roll. So now, the next one is dodecahedron. And here is where everybody gets their panties in a bunch, because they don't believe, or they want, tangible information to go, okay, this is what I'm going to use. So it is because we were just talking about it. It's ether. Okay. And it's, I'm not going to lie. The most easiest common thing to correlate with this is when a person dies, all that energy they had, it stays together. It doesn't go nowhere, but it kind of floats around. And as you know, the religions, they teach a thing about going to a place of amazing glory and happiness, or complete torture. Anyway, so Aether is definitely has a slot in it because it's so grand. It's so grand of all these things we don't really know, but we feel them. And I have come to know that sometimes you could feel someone that has gone and it feels a certain way, right? And then you feel that same kind of thing again. So you kind of put them together, like, oh, these are feeling like this, and these over there are feeling like this. They're kind of similar, a little bit different, and these are kind of similar, but they're more different than these over here. So when you start doing it after a while, you start to realize who were humans and whatever the other things are, you don't know. I'm not going to say because nobody knows, you know? What am I going to say? Oh, here's something. When I was talking about the pulsating spheres that you feel and they go away, you could actually kind of like almost see them and you follow them and all of a sudden they disappear. They could also be past pets because I once saw a puff and it was like I thought I was looking at, because we're trying to describe colors, right? I said, oh, I saw a puff, so immediately I think it's white. And I think that it's what our eyes, the power of our eyes when they're looking at something, it's kind of supposed to be a purple light, but it's not. It's white. But I mean, it is a purple light because we're going to talk about that too. Ether is definitely purple. One time I felt overloaded with energy, evoking energy, invoking energy. And you can't walk around like that. You'll never sleep. It's crazy. So you got to get rid of it, you know? One time I was in Lamert Park and my friend was coming down the block and I was near this African store and it had all this, they sell shea butter and art and jewelry, beautiful stuff. And it's the store that's leased from the park all the way down the block, you know? Or the circle in the middle with the grass where they have the food and the vendors every Sunday. Anyway, this is years and years ago. And it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was stretching my arms out, and I was pushing out all this. I was taking a deep breath. And the friend, he said, oh, man, I saw that purple energy coming out of you. I was like, get the hell out of here. I couldn't believe it. I didn't say it. He said it. So, yeah, you could have this stuff. You could be, because you're a powerful being, you know how to do this, and you're invoking. The first thing I think of is the deity, oh man, Shiva. Shiva was known to be a type of archetype to hold all these entities. That's powerful. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about one ether. So anyway, dodecahedron ether. Ether is not only, I just said, it has all these things we don't know, right? But remember, there's plasma, there's photons, there's, all these things, nebula, right? No, nobody understands it. You can feel these things. The radiation of things can kill us, but that's why there's ether. The ether, it forms some type of thing where you're not really feeling this thing. You're kind of like, it's almost like your brain is reading a book or a message saying, oh, this is this thing. And you're like, oh, wow. Because you're on Earth, obviously. We're on Earth, this thing, this whatever changing of energy or transforming or transmogrifying, whatever the case may be, that we're experiencing this thing, right? It's happening with energy, right? It's in the earth and we're not dying, but whatever, it's whatever it is. So how are we feeling this and how are we understanding it? Because of ether. And that's what this die is. So it's 12 sided, and for me, this one die, the way I read it, as far as a good feeling or anything, even kind of good luck, it's every number. But obviously, the greater the number, the greater the I would say, quote unquote, anointing, if you know what I mean. So, because what it is when the thought that comes to mind when I think of people who passed is only one thing: help, help. Why is it in the die? Why is it in something to read? Because it's help. See, so does it mean that there are 12 people following you that have passed if you roll a 12? I don't know. I think it's the power of the energy of it, the intensity. But I have seen somebody roll a 3 and they were having a really great time. But what's crazy was the first thing that came to my heart, my mind was saying, it felt like somebody was saying, tell him to get back to spirituality. Tell him to get back to doing this. You're a Christian, get back to church. You're a Muslim, get back to the mosque. You know, you're a Hasidic Jew, get back to the temple. Okay? And so forth and so on, okay? Or a person that is not of a religion that is spiritual, like eclectic spiritual like me, get back to meditation, eating well, practicing wellness, I know that you guys kind of look at me and I'm like kind of rough around the edges, but even I'm saying to you, you know what? That stuff, you want to be authentic, you want to be different. It can be cool, but the truth is truth. And spirituality and Zenness doesn't like cursing and yelling and getting angry and being violent and being overly on anything, overeating, over sexual, over thinking as far as like being overly concerned for things. Oh God, this, that. Being a person that you think you're going to get sick, or you think this, or you think that. And these are a lot of negativities, but they're not really that detrimental, but they can be. And that's why I'm saying, people out there, enough with the thing that you hear that you say, oh, we don't want to be judged because we're this way. Well, guess what then? It's time to work on ourselves so that we could be a good example of being spiritual, because I feel the giant wave of energy telling me to tell you guys it's time to get real and serious about spirituality. No, I cannot say to you, this is in this way. If you follow this thing this way, that's against spirituality. But I'm giving you a template in your mind so that you go off and you figure it out for yourself. You could be a Hindu person. You could be Punjab, or I don't know why I'm thinking. You know what? I love the Indian culture. I just said 2 of their religions. They're very powerful, beautiful people, and they amazing spirituality. A large amount of the information that I have attained to help myself, my body, and my spirituality, I do find it a substantial amount of information comes from that culture. So anyway, that's the Platonic Solids. I have a class. You'll see that it says Zoom, but the truth is, I can have my class on anything, on any Skype, or I'll go as far as Facebook if a bunch of people sign up. I hate Facebook. I actually hate all the social medias. They're all archon, but we use them, so we use them with wisdom and love and light, and the good feeling of knowing that people will be prosperous with what we teach, what we give the information. So thank you. It was really cool. I hope you guys enjoyed this basic information of Platonic Solids and Polyhedral dice.